Welcome to Total Retail Talks, your podcast channel for retail knowledge.
Hello, and welcome to this episode of Total Retail Talks. I'm Joe Keenan, Editor-in-Chief of Total Retail, and I'm joined on today's episode by Shawn Nelson, the founder and CEO of Lovesac. We're going to talk a little bit with Shawn about the growth of Lovesac's business, a little bit of what it has planned for the future, and just talk a little bit about some of the current business environment challenges and how kind of Lovesac is addressing them. So thanks for joining me today, Shawn.
Thanks for having me. Great to be here.
Great. Well, to get us started, can you go ahead and tell us a little bit, as I noted, you're the founder of the company. So tell us a little bit about the origin story for Lovesac.
Yeah, Lovesac is a saga. This is not an overnight success. This is 25 years of grinding it out. It began as a side hustle while I was in college and living in my parents' basement. I'd made a big beanbag. People loved it. Started making more for friends and family, selling them, at boat shows, home shows, car shows, 10 by 10 booths here and there. And it turned into this little business that never made any money all the way through college. And toward the end, I was ready to be done with it. And just about the time I was looking at wrapping it up, we got this huge order from a major US retailer wanting 12,000 units, not realizing it was like me and a buddy and like a wood chipper shredding foam, but we took the order, we sourced it in Asia, we stuffed it in a little factory we built by hand and somehow got through, and that launched us into a scaled factory. We had to keep selling somehow to keep the lights on. The furniture stores wouldn't have it. So we opened our own store in 2001 at a mall, and it turned out to be radically successful. We began franchising. We got out of that a few years later and had to kind of start over and retool the whole business, moved it to Connecticut from Salt Lake City, where we had started. And then we invented sectionals, because in that first store, there was a couch in the corner that looked pretty, and we couldn't deal with it, ship it, move it, deliver it. And we had been shrinking these giant bean bags down to 1/8 the original volume. If only we could do that with a couch. We did that. It took another decade to figure out how to convert this beanbag brand into a home furnishings brand. And then these last 5 years, transitioning from, operating 40 or 50 furniture stores, with highlighting these unique products, to really maybe one of the US leaders in the direct consumer model, where we don't even operate stores anymore. We operate these showrooms for the internet that really only sell Sacs and sectionals and a few other things. And we've focused, and with that focus, have grown the company now to $500 million in sales roughly for last year, and quite profitable, public on NASDAQ. And it's been a long, hard grind, but we're still growing at a rapid pace at over 50%, and have been for about 4 years. So it's been a wild ride, but we're excited for the future.
Yeah, and congrats on that kind of, even the growth of the business, but even more recent, the success that you've enjoyed. I want to talk a little bit, follow up there, and just kind of the evolution of the product line. You mentioned sectionals, and that's kind of the marquee product at Lovesac. Maybe tell us a little bit about how the product development processes evolved at Lovesac and kind of your current product line.
Yeah, so the oversized Sacs continue to grow as a business. We were told they were a fad back in 2001, and wouldn't you know it, for more than, I guess, 25 years straight, it's been growth on growth. Sectionals, though, have taken over the lion's share of our sales by sheer virtue of their uniqueness in the couch category. It looks beautiful, like any couch you could get from one of our competitors. At the higher end, we believe that we compete with Restoration, Pottery Barn, Crate and Barrel, West Elm, IKEA, take your pick. We sell couches, but ours, while they look beautiful, like all of the constituents I mentioned, they're washable and changeable and movable and stackable and stockable, and they ship today. And it's just it's a very unique product that's patented by Lovesac, that has all these unique attributes that ultimately allow it to last a lifetime. But it was designed to evolve as your life changes, and that's given rise to a whole design philosophy at Lovesac. So that's how we innovate. We make things that are built to last a lifetime, designed to evolve. And we call that designed for life.
Yeah.
And this design for life philosophy now guides all of our product development. And rather than be a furniture generalist, like most of the players we compete with, we pick categories that are meaningful to your life. We invent things that are built to last a lifetime and designed to evolve. And like sectionals, we believe we have a path toward making things that really stand out in their categories and can get to scale, can be useful to a broad consumer set, even though we focus on right now, the millennial generation is kind of our focus. Empty nesters buy these because they see the ads and it looks clever and they're downsizing, and young professionals buy them because they're starting out, and our sustainability message is unlike any other because it actually sustains. Not to mention, we recycle more plastic bottles than any company on earth that we know of into home deck fabric. We're proud of that. So I could go on, but we'll take the same approach to other categories as well. And we already have, moving into home audio. We launched Stealth Tech, this hidden surround sound system that can be seamlessly added into your sectionals, even if you bought them 10 years ago. So it speaks to that design for life ethos of products that can evolve.
Mm-hmm.
And we intend to compete in home audio of late and other categories to come.
It's kind of gives a good overview, and I appreciate that. So as you mentioned, it's been a kind of a long journey, it's been a grind at certain points, but the business has really grown, and including recently announced record 2022 fiscal year performance. So tell us a little bit about some of the factors that you believe attribute to that growth, and you might have addressed some of them there, and kind of the uniqueness of the product and how it really stands out and is differentiated in the category. But talk a little bit about some of the factors that you would attribute to more recent growth.
Yeah. Well, the pandemic, as it turns out, I mean, we were buckled down and prepared for the worst. And as it turns out, the pandemic was good to the home category broadly, and I think saved a lot of businesses that we compete with that haven't built as viable a business as Lovesac. But we flourished along with that, with people contemplating the state of their couch, the state of their home, investing in their home as they hunkered down. Turned out to be good for the category. That was an initial surprise. We closed every showroom, right? And so we went to web only almost overnight. I mean, you talk about a cataclysmic event that you think is going to decimate your business, and we still grew at around 40%, which is about the pace we'd been growing leading up to that. Coming out of the pandemic, we got to open showrooms back up, and our growth continued on about that same pace, a little faster, with things opening up, and with our and really what it's revealed to us is we are not, because here we are today with a lot of furniture retailers and whatnot complaining about, the pullback and post-pandemic and the consumer and inflation and interest rates and all these other things. And our business is on a tear. And it has less to do with the macro environment and more to do with the fact that we invented something. It looks like something else. It looks like a sectional you could buy somewhere else, sure. But it has all of these unique attributes because of its inventiveness. And it's catching on. And the more we sell, the more we will sell, because now, and this is a recent statistic, 1/4 of those people buying sectionals report learning about it from a friend and seeing it in a friend's home. That couldn't have happened years ago because there weren't enough sectionals out there to move the needle that way, but that's happening now.
Yeah.
And the same will happen with Stealth Tech down the road. And the same will happen with the next thing that we launch that is unique and amazing and conversation worthy. And so our business model is very different than a furniture retailer as we think of them. And because it's all direct to consumer, we have all the data of every sectional and sac ever sold. And we reserve the right, of course, to reach back out to those people at very little cost and sell them the next really cool thing like Stealth Tech. And so that business model is growing on itself, and we continue to find success and momentum.
Yeah, kind of creating that lifetime value, as you mentioned. Kind of you're able to reach back out to that customer at very little cost. Obviously, rising customer acquisition rates factor into that, so that you have those customers kind of in the fold already, and you can introduce them to new products.
Absolutely. That's
So
right.
you talked about some of the, or at least alluded to some of the kind of the macro challenges that exist, and I'm sure Lovesac's not immune to some of those. They include inflationary pressures, supply chain disruptions, labor shortages in some cases. Talk a little bit about if any of those, maybe all of them, have had some impact on Lovesac's business and kind of what you're doing to address them.
Well, we live in a messy world right now. I think any person can attest to that. And thankfully, we've always believed, I think it was more steady as she goes. Let's say 4 years ago, take your pick. And with all of these things that you mentioned, inflation, labor rates, crisis after crisis, the supply chain issues, it's really been sectionals in particular, because that is like 90% of our sales at the moment. Sectionals, unique attributes that have allowed us to weather, and of course the deft strategy and steps taken by our team at Lovesac that has allowed us to weather each one of these uniquely and successfully. So an example, in supply chain, while many are experiencing outages and shortages and out of stocks and long lead times, sectionals, if you understand them, they look like a sectional, but there's really two core SKUs. There's seats and their sides, and you build 10,000 different couch configurations from these two SKUs. So as long as we never run out of those, we're always in stock of sectionals, and so that's the mission. And so not only can we pack those 2 or 3 times as efficiently on containers from overseas as something similar in the form of a sofa or even a proper sectional. So it's just more efficient. It rides more efficiently, therefore less expensively, all of these things. But also, we've redundantly sourced those SKUs in 3 or 4 different geographies in Asia. So as ports close, as COVID flares up, in any one of these geographies, we're able to shift and keep moving and adjust. And so while all of our competitors, for the most part, source from these same, China, Indonesia, Malaysia, Vietnam, etc., they often concentrate a certain category or a certain SKU in each one of those geographies, where ours is classically redundant and with perfect management of quality. You can't tell the difference. And so that's been a really unique strategy that's helped us through that, for instance. And then, you get into, for instance, our showrooms, and we're operating only 800 square feet on average, with typically 4 or 5 people on a staff. You compare that to a tiny little restaurant in the food court that might do less sales than us in a service business and have 30 employees under that tiny roof, right? And so the ratio of staffing to sales per square foot, which is uniquely high for Lovesac. I think we're only second to Apple and Tiffany's. So forget furniture retail, we crush that from a sales per square foot standpoint, because at the end of the day, what's happening is people are learning about this unique product online. They're coming into a showroom interested, and they want to sit on the thing, or they want to experience, or they want to pick their fabrics in person. Mm-hmm. And then they might convert there. And so we're selling the biggest ticket thing in the mall, out of this really one of the smallest footprints in the entire mall. And it's not just malls, we're on street locations and doing other things as well. We have shop in shops inside of Best Buy that we operate on our POS. We also have now mobile concierge. These are Lovesac trucks that you could book to come to your front door. There's only a couple of those out there, but we hope to do more. It's going very well. So, in all of these unique ways, I just think our model is so different than those that we sell couches against, that are furniture generalists and more traditional retailers, or, even into e-commerce. But still, the model is so different that it's been good for us throughout all of these sort of headwinds.
So, wow, obviously no one has a crystal ball and can predict what's going to come next, whether it be, a global pandemic, which we just have gone through. No one can ever prepare for that. But how do you kind of at least think about the business a little bit on a longer term perspective, taking into account some of these uncertainties that might pop up?
Great question. I think it starts with the team. I think it starts with building a team that is world-class, that is, built on merit, that is built strategically, with a lot of diversity and a lot of really strong backgrounds. And I think it's, leaning into this design philosophy that served us so well, right? It creates products that are uniquely flexible, nimble, superior, and therefore more resistant to the macro forces when you're just selling in a marketplace or when you're just selling commodities versus other commodities. See, most of the world, both in furniture and in fashion and so many other realms, even electronics, it's built on this weird seasonal, annual rhythm, new season, new collection, new line, new introduction all the time. And it creates so much obsolescence. It creates so much end of season, out of stock, overstock, sell it off, clear it out. And really the consumer isn't asking for it. They're not. It's been forced upon them. And these rhythms have been manufactured by business to create more business. And we are literally swimming the other direction. We are saying to people, we want you to own your Sactionals pieces for like decades. Mine, by the way, are 15 years old. They're mated with Stealth Tech, with Power Hub, with Storage Seat, with Roll Arm, with all of the things we've introduced over the past few years. And they've evolved and they're on their like 10th set of covers. That's the vision for truly sustainable products, let alone, the plastic bottle thing and everything else we do on that front. So when you have a design philosophy that's so unique, it just makes for better products that really speak to people in plain language, as opposed to selling them on newness and scarcity and obsolescence. We're the opposite. Mm-hmm. And that resonates with people that have a brain. And so, what it doesn't do is it doesn't grow the couch category. In fact, if I'm successful, there will be fewer couches sold a decade from now because of my eating a piece of this category and then lasting forever. So what does that then force me as a designer, as an entrepreneur to do? Forces me to innovate into other categories and eat those as well and shrink those as well. And that flies in the face of every marketing book you've ever read that tells you to grow the pie. We're literally trying to shrink the pie, but eat a lot of it as we go.
Yeah.
And so, you can like that or not like that, but that's what we're doing and we believe in it. And I'm so forthright about it because frankly, we hope other companies adopt this way of doing business, because the way business is done right now is wasteful and deleterious to the world, to the environment, and frankly, to consumers.
And is home audio, as you mentioned, could that be the next potential category that you look to?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think we've got the best home audio system that exists. I think no one knows about it because we've just started advertising it. The good news is we've got a much bigger microphone than we did before because we're spending, 13-14% of sales on marketing. And we just cleared nearly $500 million in sales. And so that's a big number now. And so I think home audio, we can disrupt hopefully faster than we did couches. And by the way, couches, with all of Sactional's amazing attributes that I've been going on about, we've only grabbed 1% of that market. There's 99 other couches being sold to our one. I mean, how exciting is that for us? But, we've got a long way to go. So there will be other categories as well. We view the entire, from your mailbox to the back wall in your garden. That's our purview. And we intend to innovate into other categories as well, but one at a time, not as a generalist, not as a merchandiser, but as an inventor, according to this design philosophy.
Yeah, and bring that uniqueness to the category, own that, really eat into that category, to use your analogy, and then, potentially look at other categories after that, but not spreading yourself so thin that you're entering multiple categories at one time.
Yeah, I mean, that's how we operate. And it's working well for us.
So let's talk a little bit, we haven't really talked about the consumer and what you're expecting. And things that you might be interested in, excited about. Tell us a little bit about the consumer and some of the trends that you're seeing and what that might mean for Lovesac and really the retail industry as a whole, kind of for the second half of the year.
Yeah, I mean, it falls in that same bucket of unknownness and messiness, right? Like with inflation where it's at. With the uncertainty in the markets in general, uncertainty in the supply chain, I think that the consumer is caught in between. At the same time, the consumer, generally speaking, if you look at what's going on with, from bank reports, they've got more savings broadly than before. And there's still a lot of money on the sidelines. And so I think that this egg on the roof could roll either way. I think that it's possible America could slip into recession. I think it's more likely that with all of the learnings from the past and with a lot of the underlying strengths in the economy, actually, we will continue on and growth will continue. I'm not talking about Lovesac, of course. I think Lovesac can grow either way, better than many and be resilient, more resilient than many. But I think that broadly, there are so many underlying strengths and pent up demand that the consumer can remain strong. It'll just be messy and uncomfortable as we navigate through a lot of this uncertainty.
And then lastly, I'd like to kind of get your perspective. We've talked a little bit about kind of the uncertainties that exist in the consumer and their potential spending power going forward. Um, as a leader of an organization, tell us a little bit how you might have had to evolve over the last couple of years, particularly as you kind of manage staff and think about the business. So we'll start with that. Tell us a little bit how you might have had to evolve as a leader.
Well, one of Lovesac's values, that stated values, is to be an insatiable learner. And with all the values, I think, that are stated, many of them come from me. And this has been a long arc of developing a culture and developing a company with a culture. And so these sorts of things have evolved, these statements and whatnot have evolved organically over time. But being an insatiable learner is something I hold very personally and try to impose on the organization. We read books, we have a book club, we have mentors, we have so many different ways that we try and reinforce that attribute, and I do personally. And so that's a big one. I think you can never stop learning. You can never stop pushing yourself out of your comfort zone. And I think that our number one guiding principle is that we can all win together, and it's a stakeholder mentality. And for me, honestly, the way, there's so many ways we could come at that, but the best way for me to ensure that my now public stake in Lovesac grows and grows and grows and becomes worth fortunes, and therefore makes fortunes for others, including those that work at Lovesac who own the stock as well, is for me to just have the best talent, unabashedly, with no regard for my own ego, with no regard for my own job and the threat it may pose. So I have recruited what I think is world-class talent. My president and COO, my business partner, Mary Fox. I mean, she was a long time executive of Walmart, ran BIC before this. I mean, mega corporations. And not just that, but she's just such a wonderful person. She was she's really the founder of the Sustainability Council that's famous, with Nike, Walmart, Patagonia. So these are the kind of people that are on my team.
Yeah.
That are vastly more talented, more capable than I am. I joke around with them. I was raised by wolves, while everyone who works with me and for me, they had a corporate upbringing. They understand process and systems and people and coaching and everything. And I was like out there making beanbags trying to survive. Right now, I have a lot to offer, I think, as a designer and as a creative in all sorts of realms, and as a leader. But with that kind of support, how can you lose?
Yeah, you've developed a well-rounded team, and your strengths might be different from some of the, and you've to your point, not having an ego and recognizing that I don't know, I have all the answers, I don't know everything. I'm going to try to surround myself with others that really can help in this particular area of the business where I might be a little bit lacking. Can be, a good, really a sign of a strong leader.
I hope so. And look, it's not easy to do. I think a lot of people will say that, and a lot of books will speak to that. But when push comes to shove, do you dare to surround yourself with people who can make you obsolete and still be comfortable at the table and take that risk? And as a public company with a board of directors, like that's what I face. But I'm totally comfortable in that realm. I've been operating in that realm now for a long, long time, and it's only brought me success.
Great. Well, I want to take the opportunity. I think this has been a really enlightening conversation. I want to take the opportunity to thank Shawn Nelson, who is the founder and CEO of Lovesac, for joining us on today's episode of Total Retail Talks and telling us a little bit about the business, as well as potential future plans for Lovesac and all the great things that it has coming in the near future. So thank you for joining me today, Shawn.
Thanks for having me. It's been great. Appreciate it.
Thanks for listening. For more information on this podcast, please check out our podcast channel page at mytotalretail.com/podcasts for show notes. Total Retail Talks is available on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and Spotify. Make sure to subscribe on our podcast channel page as well. If you've enjoyed this episode, please take a few moments to rate and review this podcast. Thanks, and until next time, this has been Total Retail Talks.